Hello, dear learners. Welcome back to my channel, Shelley's Langlet Lab. This is part 2 of W.B. Yeats's poem, A Prayer for My Daughter. In part 1, we discussed about the poet, the background of the poem, and the first four stanzas of A Prayer for My Daughter. Let us now discuss the important figures of speech, and then we will move on to the further stanzas of the poem. In the very first line, once more the storm is howling, there is personification. Whenever some quality of a living being is attributed to a non living thing or an abstract idea, there is personification. So, here, howling, this particular quality is attributed to a storm. That is why we can call it a personification. Then in the second stanza, second line, sea wind scream. Here the E. This sound is actually getting repeated three times, which is a vowel sound. So we can say that here is the figure of speech is assonance. Then the future years had come, dancing to a frenzied drum out of the murderous innocence of the sea. So here the future years had come dancing to a frenzied drum. Here the personification is again done very beautifully. The future years had come and they are dancing. So, future years do not dance, but people dance. So, here again, a beautiful example of personification. Then, out of the murderous innocence of the sea. Being murderous and being innocent are two very different qualities. And when two different ideas are put together, we call it a paradox. In the fourth paragraph, Helen is presented as a symbol of cultured, beautiful women who make mistakes in their lives and invite fools to destroy their life. Or and there is one more very beautiful symbol, that is of horn of plenty. I told you in the previous video also that horn of plenty is a horn of a goat that is given by Zeus to his caretaker, and it is a symbol of fertility, prosperity, and procreation. So, beauty is presented as the horn of plenty that a beautiful woman has. Now, moving on to the stanza number 5 of the poem. In courtesy, I would have her chiefly learned. Hearts are not had as a gift, but hearts are earned by those that are not entirely beautiful. He says that I would make my daughter learn to be courteous. I would teach her that hearts, which means love, is not a gift, but it is actually earned by those people who are not entirely beautiful. Those people who earn love in their lives may not be beautiful outside, but they are beautiful inside. They are very kind and they are very helpful. Yet many that have played the fool, for beauty's very self has charm made wise. Here, the fool means here Yeats is actually pointing towards himself. He says that I was a fool to love a woman for her beauty, and this charm, her charm, made me wise. By loving a woman just for her beauty, it made me now wise. And many a poor man that has roved, loved, and thought himself beloved. Again, the reference is to Yeats and his unfailing love towards Mortgane. He says that many a poor man like me have roved after beautiful women and thought that they would get that love in return. From a glad kindness cannot take his eyes, but actually that beauty made me wise, and now I know that glad kindness cannot take my eyes now. Okay, it cannot manipulate me, but it is only the kindness of a woman that made me glad. Here, the reference can also be to George Hidley's, who was not a very beautiful lady, but she was very kind and very helpful. So, here Yeats also points towards her and he says that her kindness made me glad. May she become a flourishing hidden tree, that all her thoughts may like the linnet be. He says, may my daughter become a flourishing hidden tree, a tree that is green, that is in its youth forever, and which is flourishing, which is growing day by day. But it should be hidden. She should not be too open to everything. She should not be exposed. So the tree should be hidden and flourishing in its own self. That all her thoughts may like the linnet be. And linnet is a very sweet bird, and she sings very beautiful song. So here he wants that the thoughts in my daughter's heart would be like the linnet, like the bird. Okay, she would sing happily, merrily, like the linnet. So he wishes all these things for her daughter, and he says, and have no business but dispensing round their magnanimities of sound, nor but in merriment begin a chase, nor but in merriment a quarrel. Oh, may she live like some green laurel. Okay, let us now discuss the uh, previous four lines. And have no business but dispensing round their magnanimities of sound. So I want my daughter to have no other business but to spread happiness all around her. And I want her to begin a chase, to begin a quarrel, but only in happiness, only in merriment. I want her all quarrels, all chases to be very happy. Oh, may she live like some green laurel, rooted in one dear perpetual place. He says, oh, may she live like some green laurel. May she live like a pure soul. Green here shows, that when something forever lives in its youth. Okay, green means something that is very young, very beautiful. And laurel can be a reference to the nymph Daphne, who was pursued by god Apollo, and she was too eager to protect her virtue that she turned herself into a laurel tree. So here Yeats wants her daughter to be pure inside, a virtuous lady. So he says, may she live like some green laurel, a pure lady, rooted in one dear perpetual place. And like the laurel tree is rooted at one place, one dear, one happy, perpetual place. Here, Yeats actually wishes her daughter to live in a very happy house, a happy place where she is rooted. My mind, because the minds that I have loved, the sort of beauty that I have approved, prosper but little, has dried up of late. And he says that I had loved a different kind of beauty that was shallow, and the beauty I approved of, it does not prosper because it lacked innocence. And then he says, yet knows that to be choked with hate may well be of all evil chances chief, that also has bred hatred in my mind. Then he says that I want my daughter to be devoid of such kind of hatred in her life. And then he says, if there is no hatred in a mind, assault and battery of the wind can never tear the linnet from the leaf. He says that if my daughter is going to be very innocent, if there is no hatred in her mind, if her soul is free from any kind of prejudice, then nothing can ruin her happiness and innocence. The linnet will never be apart from the leaf. The bird will never be apart from the tree. Okay, the laurel tree. So he says here that even the wind may be too strong, even then it won't be able to um, uh, pull apart the linnet from the leaf. And intellectual hatred is the worst. He says that intellectual hatred is the worst kind of hatred. And he also says that a woman who is very much opinionated, they are accursed. So he does not want her daughter to have too much opinions in her life. Here is a direct reference to Morgan, who was a strong woman, who was very much opinionated and an intellectual one. Have I not seen the loveliest woman born out of the mouth of plenty's horn? Because of her opinionated mind, barter that horn and every good, by quiet natures understood, for an old bellows full of angry wind. He says that, have I not seen? It means I have seen. I have seen the loveliest woman born. Here the reference is to Maud Gonne again. And he says, out, and she was born out of the mouth of plenty's horn. She had everything that a woman wants in her life. But because of her opinionated mind, because she was too much opinionated, she bartered. Barter means when you sell something and get another thing in return. So he says that, and she bartered that horn, she gave up that horn and everything that was good in her life. And what did she do? She married an old bellows full of angry wind. Here the reference is to John McBride, who was the husband of Maud Gonne. Considering that all hatred driven hence, the soul recovers radical innocence and learns at last that it is self delighting, self appeasing, self affrighting, and that its own sweet will is heaven's will. She can, though every face should scowl, and every windy quarter howl, or every bellows burst, be happy still. Now, here the poet says that if the soul achieves that radical innocence, then that person can achieve everything. That person becomes self delighting. That person can be happy in her own self, self appeasing, calm in every situation, and self affrighting. There is no one else, but they only fear from their own self. And that is that its own sweet will is heaven's will. Even if the winds are against you, when everything is chaotic, if every face is scowling towards you, if there is great storm, or if there are many aggressive people around you, my daughter can be happy even then. If she achieves, if her soul recovers that radical innocence. And may her bridegroom bring her to a house where all is accustomed, ceremonious, for arrogance and hatred are all the wares peddled in the thoroughfares, but in custom and in ceremony are innocence and beauty born. And may her bridegroom bring her to a house where all is accustomed, ceremonious. Here he says that I want my daughter to get married to a person who will bring her to a house, who would bring her to a house where everything is accustomed, everything is done according to traditions, where the atmosphere is very much ceremonious, full of tradition. And may the bridegroom takes my daughter to a aristocratic family when there are so many people and they follow tradition. For arrogance and hatred are the wares peddled in the thoroughfares. And because the things like arrogance, hatred, all these low qualities, they are found in common among people. Outside, there is arrogance, hatred, everything. But in a house that is ceremonious and everything is accustomed, everything follows tradition, then that place is devoid of arrogance and hatred. How but in custom and in ceremony are innocence and beauty born? And he says, where but in custom and in ceremony beauty and innocence take birth. And here the meaning is very much literal. And he says that may my daughter spreads like a laurel tree. She may have beautiful and innocent children while living in a house that is that is made up of custom and where she lives in ceremony, because ceremony is a name for the rich horn and custom for the spreading laurel tree. And here, because ceremony stands for rich horn, wherever there is ceremony, you will find the rich horn, you will find prosperity, you will find procreation, you will find fertility, you will find happiness there. And custom for the spreading laurel tree. And where you follow custom, You will be like a spreading laurel tree, a tree that is spreading its branches, where my daughter can have a beautiful family. So here the poem ends, and the poem is actually a prayer for my daughter. One can actually feel the peer pressure here. Let us just revise it again. In the first stanza, the tone is very much reflective. Then in the second stanza, he again is very much anxious regarding the future of Annie, Butler Yeats. And in the third, he starts praying for his daughter and he tells us what he actually wishes for her. He says that I don't want her to be very beautiful because beautiful women have often made mistakes in their lives. Then he says, I want her to be courteous. I want her to be kind. I want her to be like a flourishing hidden tree, not too much opinionated. I want her to be like a linnet, the bird linnet. And I want her to be, or I want her to live like a pious lady, okay, a virtuous lady, like a green laurel. He says that I would teach my daughter that if you are innocent, you will be not affected by anything bad that is happening around you or your life. Then he says that I don't want my daughter to have hatred in her heart. And then in the end, he says that I want her to have a beautiful aristocratic family where she lives her life happily and where she can have beautiful and innocent children. And he wants her to go in a house where ceremony and custom is celebrated. Now, coming to the important facts about the poem. The poem is written in 8 line stanzas, made up of total 10 stanzas. Rhyme scheme is AABBCDDC. The tone is very much intense, anxious, frenetic, maddening, and sometimes reflective, sometimes sad when he thinks about his own life, and then troubled when he is anxious about Annie's future, scornful when he talks about Mortgone, advisory when he wants to teach something to his daughter, and hopeful when he thinks of Annie's future years, and prayer like in the whole of the poem, and very optimistic as well. In the beginning, it was pessimistic, but later on, gradually, when he thinks upon the idea and he gets optimistic. The poem is also criticized for its anti feminist undertone. The way Yeats talks about the woman, he says she should not be too much opinionated. He criticizes intellectual women and he says that they always make mistakes. He says that they eat crazy salad with their meat. So, such kind of ideas also led this poem to have an anti feminist undertone. So, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching this video so far. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe, and press the bell icon so that you can get all the future notifications in time. Thank you so much.